Hey everybody, Chaz Patrick here from INvets. I would like to welcome you to this meeting that we're having or webinar. And so, as you don't know, my name is Chaz Patrick, and I am the Veteran Engagement Manager for INvets. And so I started these monthly huddles in order to interview veterans that are currently in the Hoosier State that are working at great companies, but also, inviting companies that are hiring veterans to be a part of the conversation. So my first guest today is Paul. Paul is a fantastic guy. I have known him for years. He is a hard charger, networker extreme, and man, the guy's project management skills are off the chain. So, Paul, I want to welcome you to the monthly Patrick Connection monthly huddle. And so, if you want to go ahead and tell the people about who you are and how'd you get here, go ahead and open it up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Chase, for that introduction. I will do my very best to live up to those words. And yeah, so I met Chase years ago when I was studying my master's degree at University of Southern Indiana. Um,
Go
that was when I
Spriegels.
lived. What's that? Yeah,
Go Spriegels.
there you go. That was the first time that I was living in Evansville, Indiana. Um, so um, that's where I met Chase. Reconnected with him a couple of times here and there throughout my time away from Evansville. My at the time wife and I we moved to Florida to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse anesthetist, and she went to school down there. And so a big part of my out of the military transition journey happened in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
We then moved back to Evansville because that was what our plan was going to be, seeing our family, living closer to her family. She was from Evansville, Indiana. She still has family here, and so that's what brought me back. What keeps me here in Evansville is that my daughter is still here. The marriage unfortunately did not work out, but I'm here to be a big part of my daughter's life. And so that's why I'm back in Evansville. I think the town is really great. And I love seeing my daughter. So that's why I'm here. As far as where I work right now, God has blessed me with a wonderful job with GDIT, General Dynamics Information Technology. It
Acronyms.
is, what's that?
I
Yeah,
said acronyms.
I'm having like a stroke or something right here. I can't think of letters and words. Um, they are a really great company to work for, especially if you're a veteran. I do work with a lot of veterans who did their service and whatnot, maybe retired from the service and then they're working there. I work with a lot of others who are currently serving in the National Guard or the Reserves. So that's a lot of fun relating with those. Uh, in fact, I have one guy on my team who just came back from his drill. And so I couldn't help but ask him about all of the different kinds of things that he was experiencing in that type of realm. To me, it feels good to still have that kind of connection back to the military.
Yes.
The company is what, 10,000 strong, and it is I guess, subsidiary of General Dynamics, which General Dynamics is over 70,000 strong. Different General Dynamics sister companies like General Dynamics Land Systems, General Dynamics Electric Boat. There's an aeronautics one as well. I can't think of their name or whatnot. I don't know, something like General Dynamics Gulfstream or something like that. I don't know.
Okay. So there's a
But
lot of
yeah,
different like product lines.
yes. All of those different business lines are treated as separate businesses. So if I were to maybe want to use internal mobility to move my career somewhere, it's not like I can just jump from GDIT to electric boat like super easy, but it's a little easier. It's just that they're not going to be posting as many internal mobilities between those sister corporations. So
Okay.
it's GDIT is a pretty big place. The others are also generally pretty big, all falling under a large umbrella of General Dynamics.
Okay.
Um, My career right now is I'm a Scrum Master. I work in an agile environment for a program that ultimately is an Air Force program. Our part of this is building a digital engineering environment for a much larger engineering feat. If anyone's heard of the Air Force's Sentinel missile program, that's going to be the replacement of the Minuteman III system. GDIT is contracted through Northrop Grumman to create the digital engineering environment where the rest of the system will be built and operated and so on and so forth. I'm not a highly technical person. I don't have a background in computer science or anything like that, but I work with a lot of people who do. So a lot of what is spoken about in certain meetings goes way over my head. I recognize each individual word as a word itself, but when put together, I'm just lost in the sauce. Just happy to be there, here for the party.
Understand.
But being a Scrum Master in all of this, I don't necessarily need to have the technical knowledge that all of the other team members have. My job in particular is to keep the teams transparent amongst each other, keep them focused on the team goals, facilitate our meetings. There's a little bit of psychologist involved in there, where if people have certain issues or whatnot that may be preventing them from continuing work on things, maybe there's disagreements between team members or whatnot. It's good to have the soft skills that can navigate around those things and find happy mediums and whatnot to keep progress going forward. And a big part of what my job is to communicate and instill agile values to the rest of the team. Not all people in an agile environment may totally get what agile is or what the processes are in order to try to be agile. And my job is to really be an evangelist for agile philosophies and whatnot. So I don't need all the technical background, but I think there's been a lot of great opportunities and experiences that I've had through my 9-year Army career as an Army officer that prepared me very well for this role. And I'm very happy, lucky, and blessed to have this role.
Well, fantastic. I was going to ask you, so what did you do in the Army?
I was a commissioned officer in the Military Police Corps.
Okay.
So
MP.
Yep, MP. And this was coming out of my bachelor's degree, which was music education. So totally didn't really do anything with that degree. However,
same
it got me into what was it? Oh gosh, officer candidate school, the college option OCS. That's what it was.
Officer candidate school. Yep.
Yep. As 9/11 happened my freshman year in college, and I also had some difficulties getting into the school of music. I was very passionate about playing percussion, playing drums, but previous to that, I had only been officially a percussionist for like a year. Took drum set lessons and made the transition into more of an actual schooled percussionist or whatnot. So I did not get accepted into the School of Music that first year, did not get accepted into the percussion studio that year. Spent my first year in college working with the studio, in the marching band, in the drum line, and getting myself to a position where I made it into the School of Music my second year. I will definitely say though that at the time I was thinking, hey, that was a pretty big upset for me, right? Like everybody thinks that their career aspirations are going to go straight linear. It's always going to be a linear graph kind of thing. And when you are met with adversity like that, that was a big disappointment. I was very disappointed in that, but I kept working through it. However, I had a contingency plan, and that was, well, I'm going to join the Marines.
Hoorah!
If this college thing doesn't work out, I'm going to join the Marines. But yeah, that subsided, went through my college program, and that thing about 9/11 happening was always kind of chipping away in the back of my mind. My dad was in the Army for about 5 years or so, and he often, when he had me trapped in the van on some long car ride, I would be subjected to his lectures of go become an Army officer or something. Your life as an officer is going to be super great and awesome and everything. And my first grade art projects were always like I made a teddy bear with like the desert camo helmet and vest and all that kind of stuff with a rifle because I wanted to be an army guy. That's first grade Paul writing in some thing. What do you want to do when you're grown up and whatnot? And I think my answer was I want to be an army guy. I don't know. So I guess it was part of, it was kind of a dream of mine from early on. And the closer I got to graduation in my music ed degree, the more I realized if I don't serve now, I'm going to really, really, really regret it. So that was a big motivation for me to go into the military. Went into the military, was MP, platoon leader in a combat support military police company from Fort Drum.
Okay. New York.
Yep, absolutely. I'm originally from Michigan, so I was used to snow. I wasn't used to that much snow. There is this, I don't know, crazy anomaly between Watertown, New York, which was where Fort Drum is basically at, and Syracuse, New York, which is about 45 minutes south. It's this region called the Tug Hill Plateau. And I could leave Watertown bright and sunny on a Saturday, go into town or go down to Syracuse and check it out. I would arrive in Syracuse, bright, sunny, January, February day or whatever. But inside that Tug Hill Plateau was like whiteout blizzard conditions almost all the time. I have never seen a place in my life that had that an absurd amount of snow. But anyway, I digress. Deployed to Iraq during my time there. Helped out with the Iraqi police, setting up a forensics lab, working with their academy a little bit, helping police do more police stuff. Came back, did the general platoon leader stuff of training up your platoon. Got a mission to be on a contingency plan in case there was like a national disaster CONUS that would overwhelm local and state authorities and they would have to call in federal help. I was on a mission to do that. So I was actually the unit movement officer where I learned a ton about logistics and moving and planning for moves and this and that and everything else. It was an amazing opportunity. A lot of people look at that and scoff, like whoever wants to be a unit movement officer, right? Well, if you look at it, you're going to learn a heck of a lot of stuff. And there's only one XO of every company. I did not get the opportunity to be the XO, but that unit movement officer, man, that was darn near like being the XO. I learned an awful lot there. Moved on to what was it next? Korea, where I was a staff officer for a little bit. Then the brigade PMO. Got company command time in Yongsan, Korea. Had a sweet apartment in Seoul. But boy, was that a busy time. Company command is no joke.
I bet.
Woof.
Because you're like what, hundreds of soldiers, right?
A normal military police company at the time, this was 2014-ish. A normal military police company at the time was around 168 soldiers.
Okay.
And mine, with the addition of the Katusas, which was Korean augmentee to the U.S. forces, U.S. Armed Forces, essentially a Korean soldier who works directly with U.S. soldiers. It was an agreement and a program established in the Korean conflict back in the 50s and has since, ever been a part of the relationship with them. Including them, my numbers were somewhere around 246.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, company command there was, it was a special beast. Again, very glad, happy, and blessed to have that opportunity. But it was some work.
Yeah.
Came back to the States and went to a place called Camp Shelby in Mississippi, near Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Um, I was what was the name? Observer Coach Trainer, OCT. And that job put me in a small team, leading a small team of senior NCOs, where we would go partner with National Guard units, observe their training, observe their operations, and help assist them improve their systems. Um, I'm not knocking the Guard units or whatnot at all. Many of them are putting Herculean effort into the time that they have available. I just believe that they are, by the nature of the beast, hamstrung by time.
Mhm.
You know, active Army gets to play Army every single day of their lives, where the National Guard, they have a life outside of their service to the country, and
Right.
that often takes priority over getting this particular paper in, or getting this report in, or this evaluation, or any number of things that then they have all of the same requirements that the federal service has. They just have like a fraction of the time to do it. So it kind of crazy. But yeah, it was awesome working with these Guard units. A lot of Guard units around Mississippi. Worked with some in Texas. Um, Went to Puerto Rico a lot. Worked a lot with Puerto Rican National Guard. So that
Wow.
was really cool to.
Did you go there?
Yeah, multiple times. It
Okay.
was pretty neat. Yeah, got to, it wasn't a vacation. Don't get me
Right.
wrong.
Right.
Um, but it,
Workation will work.
yeah, working, right? But it was very cool seeing that society in a way that I would not have normally been able to see. Um, so really fortunate about that. And I think with that observer coach trainer thing, um, that really did a number on preparing me in becoming this scrum master role that I have. There is an organization out there called Scaled Agile, and they provide this product called SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework for Enterprise. It is, I think, the leading agile methodology out there for large corporations and companies and all that. And in there, they've recently changed the name of Scrum Master to Scrum Master Team Coach.
Okay.
So it's really fitting that I was this observer coach trainer for these teams and whatnot, and now they're changing the name of Scrum Master to Team Coach in a way, because it's almost identically the same job. Um, so that was really cool. I separated in 2017, moved back to Evansville, uh, went and got my master's at USI. Master's in what? Goodness. I can't think of it. It was an MBA with a focus of data analytics.
Okay.
That's what it
Okay.
was. Yep. I do wonder where my career would have been if I got the project management focus from USI, but either way, it was a cool program to be a part of at that time with my life, with my then girlfriend, soon to be wife. Things were like shaky as to where we as a unit were going to go. And so going to that program instead of getting a job right out of the Army, um, that made more sense to have the flexibility of going to that program instead of getting a career right away. We weren't really sure where we were going to land. So yeah, from there, that's what I did in the Army. Military police officer, doing the officer thing. Um, and so yeah, that's, I guess, the long-winded version of that answer.
So I guess my follow-up question to you, like once you finished your time, as an Army officer, so when you were really kind of thinking about your experience and breaking it down from a professional standpoint, like how did you do that? So how were you able to like identify your skills and your interests and your talents, to the area that you're in today?
Um, so how did I go from being in the military to maybe my first job outside of the military?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. For me, it was rough. I prioritized my then wife more than I really prioritized myself, and that kind of set me up for some hard-learned lessons, I guess. And I'll say that somewhere along my career path in the Army, I was told by somebody that everybody outside of the Army wants to hire Army captains. You know, it's like there was a time I heard this rumor that they were paying captains like a $10,000 bonus or whatnot to retain captains instead of the Army seeming to be losing them like crazy. Now, this may have been in the Iraq surge around 2005, 2006 or whatnot. Um, didn't necessarily apply so much to 2017 when I was getting out, 2016, but there was still that seed of a thought in my brain. And I thought, well, um, my wife and I were originally planning to land in around Nashville. She had applied to a CRNA nurse anesthetist program in Nashville, and we were thinking, well, I was thinking, cool. I'll leave. You know, we'll be leaving Hattiesburg, moving to there, and I'll just get a job with all these hundreds of companies that are looking for former Army captains. Right? It'll be great. Um, that didn't happen. She was not accepted to that school, and we kind of scrambled and moved back home, her home to Evansville.
Okay.
During that time, she was looking very hard at the Air Force, and so if she was going to be going into the Air Force, why get a job in Evansville if we're going to be moving to wherever she's going anyway? So I
Right.
just, instead of just sitting there like a loaf, I went and furthered my education with a master's degree. Um, she ultimately decided against that. There was a time where we were going to stay in Evansville, and then there was a time where she reapplied for another school in Florida. And so through her changing of her and our paths, um, it was a while before I started actually applying to jobs. When I finally started that, it was very disheartening to learn that nobody outside of the military has any idea what people who were in the military were doing. Um, there was no desire to hire Army captains, so that all like was kind of eye opening. Um, I learned a difficult lesson where you would have to start over selling yourself um, in a different way. You couldn't use your OER, your officer evaluation report bullets to tell a future employer the what you did and why it was important. You had to learn how to look at what you did. You could still use that stuff. It was still valuable things, valuable achievements, but it wasn't like a direct copy and paste. You had to look at it from the employer's point of view and say, what is their need and how did my accomplishments achieve that? Or how did my accomplishments, how did they show my future possible employer my value, what I bring to their company? Why would they want to hire me? And so it was difficult for me to kind of grasp that. In fact, I didn't really grasp that until I moved to Jacksonville with my wife at the time. And I was struggling. Like I was about to take this insurance sales job because it was like the only thing that I could ever like anybody like sent back on. And I knew in my soul it was wrong for me. At that time, I was not going to meet with success in a sales job like that. Thank
See,
God.
I said, and
What's
it
that?
makes a note when you mentioned about the connecting the experience to the job, right? And
Yeah.
really, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
A blanket
Um,
resume will not get you there. You have to
no,
connect your experience to the job
no,
and the
sir.
company and do
Absolutely.
you a little bit of homework.
One single blanket resume is not going to cover it. Um, I I was blessed to be to find this organization called ONU, Operation New Uniform. They are based out of Jacksonville, and I think they are growing. I think they now have an office in Tampa and another office somewhere else. But they do something similar to what INvets does. Um, they they are really good at helping veterans out with employment outside of their military career. They taught me so many important lessons, and one of them was that a blanket resume is not going to cut it. You have to tailor your resume to what that employer needs. And I will get into more specifics in that, where look at it like you have to show the requirements, and I will almost, maybe it's not great practice, but I will almost copy and paste the requirements from the resume and put them from the job post. I will put them on my resume and just tweak them enough. um, Maybe some specifics, if I need specifics, maybe I'll put that in later on in like my more accomplishment type stuff. But those minimum requirements at the least, those go straight up to the front of my resume just about. Um, Keywords within resumes, I now have a keen eye for those, and I put them in my resume everywhere I can, because a lot of a lot of resumes are scanned with automated resume scanning things, and if you don't have certain keywords, they're kicked out before they even see the eyes of a recruiter. Recruiters have very little time to go through a vast amount of resumes, so they're also looking for those keywords, key phrases, and um,
Connecting the
need.
story to the audience.
Yes. So you got to target it to the audience, got to target it to that particular um, job requisition. So I learned that lesson. I learned the importance of networking, because every job that I've gotten, every opportunity that I've been able to take outside of the military, I have gotten through somebody who knew me and was able to offer a position. Um, the first one took a wild hunch, because he was a recruiter that worked with ONU. So after graduating their program, he had a bead on um, an office of another company opening up in Jacksonville, and he hired, I think, he got about 4 or 5 other people, including myself, hired on to that job, that office. And that kind of started my career outside of the military. Um, the next position I found was with a guy that I was working with in that office. He worked for another adjoining company. He knew my work ethic, knew my way around the office, and um, he got me in on my next position. That next position, one project went away. I was put onto another project, and through that other project, it was subcontracted to this project, and I was working for my previous employer, and a guy, so I'm a scrum master now. There is another level, like release train engineer is the technical term, but he's a little like another scrum master on top of other scrum masters. I call it a scrummier master.
From your
And then
master.
there's another person on top of that, right? So there is a bit of a hierarchy and all this kind of thing. I jokingly refer to him as the scrummiest master. And so the scrummiest master saw me on this team as a contractor working for GDIT at the time, and thought that my skills and personality would lend very well to being a scrum master. The team I was working on at the time needed a scrum master, and so he offered me that position. Um, I took it up, and away I went, now working fully with GDIT. So
It just shows you like the power for knowing somebody, right?
yeah,
Networking, network.
absolutely. I hope that I have helped other veterans through the light networking that I did while I was in Jacksonville, and the networking that I've done through LinkedIn and whatnot. I hope that I have provided opportunities for other veterans to get employment, because I know it's difficult. Um, and I will continue to do that. Whenever I find a particular jobs or whatnot, I send the link to other veteran networking services, and hope for the best, that we can connect the right person with that right position and get them moving forward with their life, because it's difficult. Um,
Yeah.
One of the last other things that I will touch on about what I learned from that ONU program, um, they taught me something about my self-worth. Um, Really powerful, because this is me getting out of the Army, um, following and supporting my wife at the time, but seeing the difficulties in not getting a job, barely getting a call back from these, what felt like hundreds of resumes being sent out, right? And still kind of going over this mindset of like, who am I now that I'm not in the military? I had this very interesting, I don't know, feeling or emotion when I I got rid of a bunch of my old uniforms and all that kind of stuff throughout various moves, but I held on to one and I was looking at it and I'm like, I cannot let go of this. But I put it in like a vacuum seal box or vacuum seal bag in a box in my closet or whatnot. And ONU taught me something very, very valuable. It was, you are not just what you were. You are not just a soldier. You are not just an officer. There is more to life out there. You are who you are, what you do, what you believe, and that is perfect. Um, that was a very eye-opening emotional experience for me because I was feeling pretty worthless, not being able to get a job right out of the gate, and having such a hard time with that. So that lesson on your self-worth was surprisingly needed at the time.
They say there's this phrase, and it's being a veteran is a part of who you are. It's not who you are.
Yes, absolutely. My dog wanted to say hi, so I was
All
going
right.
to
All right, well, we
he'll
are
join us.
approaching our first
Yeah.
commercial break. As I mentioned, we are talking to Paul, and Paul is telling us about his transition story and how he got here to the Hoosier State. So we will be right back. All right, and talk to you when you get back, or we get back. All right, we are back. As I mentioned, we have our special guest here, Paul, who is a Scrum Master with General Dynamics IT, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Paul has given us, explained to us about his transition story as an Army officer, and coming to the Hoosier State. And so Paul has provided so much insight into what it takes to find the job or the career that you want within your life. So thank you very much, Paul, for joining us and giving in your story. So I was going to ask you, as we look at lessons learned or recommendations that we can give fellow veterans or transition service members, what are some things that you yourself would tell those who are looking?
Don't give up. Don't become disheartened. I went through that, um, and it's painful. Um, but keep on going, and you're gonna find something good. Um, I made it to the final round. Well, I think the final round of interviews with some other pretty big companies in my pursuit when I was looking for another position. Boeing in Jacksonville had a program that they told me they almost hired me for. Um, Citibank was another organization that had a big presence in Jacksonville. I applied to a position there, and I did like 3 interviews with them, um, and realized it just was not going to be a fit for us. Amazon went through a little bit of their application process for a particular job or two, and in hindsight, I realized that would not have been a position that would have been working well for me at that time. So the money would have been good, but the work and the hours of that particular role were not going to fit well with what my family needed at the time. Um, so I just say that it can become very disheartening, um, but keep on keeping it on, and do your best, to keep moving forward with everything. You never really know when that position is going to find you, or you're going to find that position, and it's going to be a solid lock.
So real quick, I know you mentioned so there were some times where you had rejection, right?
Oh yeah.
And how did you build upon that?
Um, so as an officer, as a observer coach trainer, one of the biggest things that we did was lead the AAR, the after action review. And there is a ceremony in Scrum, Scrum being an agile process, or a very popular agile process. There is the sprint the sprint retrospective. We always call it the retro, so I can never remember like the other part of the stinking word.
Terminology.
Yeah. So I used to run these after action reviews. I continue to run these retrospectives, and it's the same idea. You look at what happened honestly, openly, honestly. Sometimes you have to warn. When I was in the Army, we always warn the soldiers, hey, pride might be hurt here, but we have to get through this, to look at things honestly, openly, to see what happened and what we did, or what was intended to be done, how far we deviated from that, and what we can do in the future to learn from these experiences, whether good or bad. So yeah, I would conduct my own AARs. I would conduct my own retros after these.
Like lessons learned.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I would think to myself, okay, I felt like I had a solid answer for this question. I felt like I had a solid answer for that question. My stories, my star stories, if you would call them, it's a process of very briefly giving a situation, the trouble, what your actions were, and what the results were. It's a quick format for giving an example of your work and efforts and what was the payoff from that. It's a very helpful tip in interviewing. But then I would think, okay, maybe I felt shaky on this question. Maybe sometimes it was point blank. Do I have the knowledge that would have let me meet with success in this particular role? The Boeing one, I felt very, very solid in that one all across the board, but I was rejected ultimately. And then I did network with the hiring manager for that through LinkedIn, and I asked him, what could I have done to improve, maybe I get another opportunity soon, and I'd love to know their take on maybe what they saw. That one said, we really enjoyed every aspect of the interview. We just went with somebody who had more years experience, right?
And that happens. Yeah, that happens.
There was another one with Citibank, and I met with like their global lead for training, and somebody else who, to me, felt ridiculously high up on the food chain to be interviewing little old me, right? And I learned in that interview, I was probably interviewing for a position that was higher than my knowledge level would have allowed me to find success in. Some of the questions they were asking me were very difficult for me to get a good answer on. And I realized, like, no, this role would not have been good. Like, I would not have been a good fit for this one. Happy to have made it to that point in the hiring process, but I was underqualified for that. It made me realize, do I want to pursue the knowledge for these types of positions? Ultimately, no. That was my answer for that one. So doing the retro on that, learning what happened, what I thought was supposed to happen, and where the difference was, honestly and openly with myself, I realized I don't want to go down that as my career path. I don't want to commit to a doctorate in instructional design to make my career go that particular way. And that was very helpful, because sometimes veterans may not understand where they want to go. And if you don't necessarily have a goal in mind where you want to land, shoot, man, it's like shooting field artillery, Like if you don't know the grid coordinates that you want to put those rounds down, you're just shooting rounds anywhere, and you're not going to have the effect you want on whatever it is that you want to have an effect on. So confirming that that was not the way that I wanted to take my career, that was really helpful. It meant that I didn't apply to those positions anymore and waste the time to apply to those, right? So it was
Process of
actually great.
self-discovery.
Yes, absolutely. So that after action review, that retrospective, that lessons learned when you meet adversity, when you meet maybe initial disappointment, it's very helpful, very beneficial to do that.
Awesome. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for your time and sharing your insights and everything. Make sure you connect with Paul on LinkedIn. Also, if you got any, career opportunities as far as General Dynamics, make sure you check out their website and make sure that your resume is targeted at that position. Paul, I want to thank you once again for sharing your story and insights with our veterans that are in the Hoosier State or considering coming to the Hoosier State. And until next time, the Patrick Connection or Monthly Huddle, we meet the third Thursday of the month. Sorry, third Monday of the month, man. This is new. Make sure you check out the upcoming meetings and speakers. And until next time, be well.